Today, we're talking about how your money wounds are your love wounds, and your love wounds are your money wounds. And I'm sure that you have some idea of what's going to be happening in this conversation already, but I do like to go into the different types of scenarios and details. And so, as we spoke about yesterday in episode number 1, we as human beings apply our personal issues, limitations, things that we're dealing with, we apply that onto our business. And therefore, the work that I do with entrepreneurs is very, very heavily related to how do we feel about things? How do we think about things? What are our beliefs around things? And especially around ourselves. And how is that being applied to a business? Today, I want to speak specifically about money, because this is really a big thing. We will sabotage our money if we let ourselves do it. If we have unhealed love wounds, especially. Now, you may have heard that money is spiritual. Love that. Great. I would argue today that money is emotional. And this is not to say it's not spiritual. Things can happen at the same time. We can believe more things are true at the same time. So, how I want to talk about love wounds and money wounds is because how we relate to love is very tightly connected to what we believe that we're deserving of and what we believe is true about us. And so for a lot of the work that people have to do in this space is really figuring out, what are my beliefs about my own worthiness? And what are my beliefs around love in general? So if you feel like love always leaves, let's say you're an abandonment kind of type, you have maybe difficulties relating to love because you feel like love will always leave. Maybe you've grown up with a sense of being abandoned. And so what that can trigger is a fear of having it in the first place. So that can be that maybe you had a parent that left, or you had this experience of love being taken away from you. And that love translates to the money, because money is not love, right? Let's separate those two. But how we relate to intimacy, to love, very much also governs how we relate to money, because money is something that we're given based on our quote unquote worthiness. So a lot of people who are abandoned or felt abandoned as kids, they are going to feel like they are not good enough to stay behind for. So it's like the first person I ever loved, which was my mom or my dad, decided to leave and create a life somewhere else with someone else. And I was not good enough to hold that love. It was taken away from me. So there's a lot of emotional inflammation happening when it comes to observing yourself in terms of receiving love and receiving money. It could also be that you're dealing with rejection, right? A lot of people today deal with rejection issues because they feel like being rejected is personal. So if I say, hey, would you like to buy my offer? And you say no, I feel like you're rejecting me and taking away my validation. Instead of just saying, oh, this offer is not for me right now. It doesn't really suit what I'm looking for. It has nothing to do with me personally, right? But a lot of people struggle with that. They struggle with putting something out into the marketplace and nobody cares. And it hurts because it feels like nobody cares about me. But what it is that nobody cares about the thing that you're talking about, because you're talking about it in a way that people don't care about. You haven't found the words to describe why your thing is important. But we feel rejected, right? And when we feel rejected, that hurts. And so when we're dealing with issues of rejection, we might have a lot holding us back from putting our offer out into the marketplace because we fear the rejection. And let's just talk again about how this might be a conscious versus subconscious thing. We might have convinced ourselves that we don't care about being rejected. But if you find yourself holding yourself back from putting something out into the marketplace, there's something still that you're scared of when it comes to fear of rejection. And the crazy thing is, I know people who have done so many rejection challenges, or they've really put in some effort into healing from this work. And still, every single time they're meant to put something out into the marketplace, they find themselves hesitating, procrastinating, holding themselves back from actually just getting it out there. Let's get it out and see what the feedback is. And no feedback is also feedback, right? And so what people will do is that their fear of being rejected keeps them away from putting the thing into the marketplace in the first place, the marketplace in the first place. That was right. And then when they don't put it out there, they can't get rejected, but they also can't get compensated. And so if we fear the rejection, we will hold ourselves back, and it prevents the money from coming to us. It could also be a very, very classic issue around money, love, identity, personality. It really comes down to, do we believe we are worthy? And like I mentioned in the previous episode, the line between am I worthy and is my offer worthy becomes blurred, because we make it blurred. We make it about us when it is about the offer. So if I'm selling this thing here, so beautiful, so lovely, I want to put this into the marketplace, but then I have a fear of rejection, or I feel like I'm not worthy of receiving the money for this, even though this is a great product, I will put it out into the marketplace and feel like nobody's going to want to pay me, even though the product is good, even though the product is awesome. And if you think people aren't going to pay you, you're going to undercharge maybe, or you're going to not sell it at all. And then you'll find somebody else who's selling it and people are buying it, because we can tell, oh, the energy over there is clean, it's pure, there's no distortion. But for me, they're not going to, because I am terrified of selling it, because I'm so scared you're not going to pay me for it, or I'm going to feel like you're just not going to. And then again, very often, we don't even put it out into the marketplace simply because we find ourselves unworthy. This is not a conscious process. We don't sit at home and think, I'm not going to sell this because I'm unworthy. It's just going to come up as a feeling of resistance. It's going to come up as all of the excuses for why you shouldn't. It's going to come up as not wanting to talk about it because maybe you fear judgment, or maybe you fear being confirmed, right? Maybe you fear that somebody's going to tell you that it's right. Nobody's going to buy this, right? And even though it can seem like it's very similar to, fear of rejection, feeling unworthy, all of this, it's tightly knit. They're quite similar, but they're also not similar. Because if you don't feel worthy, you might have already confirmed to yourself that you're not. And then you don't even get to the point where you even get to think about the rejection fear, because you're not even going to start. And so it can also be that if you're scared of being, let's use rejection again. You're scared of being rejected. You're going to do everything that you can to avoid being rejected, which also means you're going to undercharge for this. You're going to charge the amount that is only just what you spent. You're going to charge for the cost, and you're going to forget about the overhead costs. You're going to forget about the fact that you need a profit margin. And you're going to think that, oh, but I don't have value, so I shouldn't charge for my effort in the business. So I shouldn't be getting a salary. And then you end up just completely undercharging for your stuff. And before you know it, you're in a deficit. Before you know it, you're bankrupt because you can't charge. You're just scared of being rejected. And so you're making all of these hoops and loops so that you decrease the risk of being rejected. The crazy thing is, if we come at it from that perspective, we're more likely to be rejected because the energy is going to feel so needy. You're going to feel like this person just really wants me to buy. That is stressing me out. And so I'm not going to buy. I'm actually going to spend more money so I can go and buy from this person over here who has a very calm, nice energy. Let's say you deal with betrayal issues. Let's say you have betrayal issues and you grew up with feeling just betrayed by everyone and anyone, maybe by people who love you. And so you find it really, really hard to trust people. And so now you don't want to you don't want to get any business partners. You don't want to make any investments. You don't want to make any joint ventures. You don't want to make any collaborations. And so you end up having very little movement. Maybe you can't even take investors because you're worried about giving away equity. Maybe you can't even take loans because you're terrified of what's going to happen when they want to have their money back. There can be so many different things that are impacting you and your relationship to how you run your business based on the wounds that you experienced when you were young. The thing is here that I really want to point out is that you cannot solve your money wounds with strategy. So what a lot of people do is that they recognize, I'm not making money the way that I want to, something is blocking, I can't figure out what it is. And then you try different plans, and then you try different strategies, and you try different blueprints. And then you see someone who says, hey, I have the perfect blueprint for you to become a millionaire. And you're like, great, let me take that blueprint. You take the blueprint and you apply it, or you think that you're applying it, but maybe you're kind of not applying it because you're not fully putting the effort in to be a match to that level of blueprint or plan or strategy. Because deep down, you're scared of being rejected, you are scared of being abandoned, you are dealing with really difficult worthiness issues. You don't know how to receive. This particularly is for the women. If you have taught that you will be a good woman if you give and if you reject receiving anything, then you cannot get paid. If you feel like there's something wrong with wanting compensation, with wanting profit margins, with wanting to receive, then you cannot receive it. So from my latest TEDx, I have one of my favorite quotes, which is my own quote, and I say it all the time. I say, you cannot transform into someone who has something if part of you believes that having it is wrong. And so if there's any part of you that believes that you shouldn't receive the money, or that you're not worthy of the money, that there's something wrong with wanting to get paid, if you have any issues with that, you cannot become someone who receives the money. And so if you have grown up, the thing about also, we grow into the people that we see based on their behaviors, not based on what they say, right? So if you have a mom or a caretaker who tells you, never let people tell you who you are, but she's always letting other people tell her who she is and then adjusting accordingly, you're not going to hear what she says. You're going to model what she does. And of course, there are cases where this is not true. It's the other way around. Maybe you have a mom who's always being told who she is and constantly tries to put herself into living up to other people's expectations of who they say she is. And you're observing it and you're saying, no, I'm never going to do that. And you're going to end up being very intentional about becoming the opposite. But if we don't have the intention of doing the opposite, we will just automatically program ourselves to become the people that were our role models, whether or not we considered them role models, but they modeled behavior for us. And so if you've seen someone who was your role model be very, very, very difficult to gift. Let's say every single time someone brings something to her, she's cooking dinner for everybody. Everyone comes into her house and she just gives and gives and gives and gives all of herself. And then when you try to bring her something, she's like, no. Oh, you really shouldn't. And it almost is awkward, right? It's almost awkward. So you try to give her something and she won't take it. How is that person going to ever receive anything? She will always be in a deficit. But then we've also heard people talk about her saying, oh, she's just the most humble woman. Oh, she's just the most incredible woman. Oh, we just love her so much. Oh, we just feel so good when we're at her house. Now you think, oh, that's the kind of praise I would like. And I've already had it modeled. And people are going to expect me to turn into the same person. So I'm going to do that. And then we're showing up, we're doing all the same stuff. And we're like, you shouldn't have gotten me this gift. That is so awkward. And then people stop bringing you gifts. But you still keep inviting people to your house so that you can cook for them and give them and serve and provide. And so if we feel awkward about receiving in general, it becomes very awkward for us to ask for compensation. And this is also one of the reasons I find that a lot of guys find it very natural to have regular salary negotiations at their workplace. And so it can be just a little comment saying, oh, things about time, or it can be that, oh, you're giving me more responsibilities. Let us have a conversation about that and let's see how that works out. Whereas with women, we'll very often just take more and more responsibility and upgrade to new levels and never have the conversation about compensation, about payment. And they can spend years being paid the same, very well recognizing that there is an increase in inflation and that the money that they receive is actually less and less and less for each year, even though they become more and more reliable employees. And they don't take up the conversation for compensation. And so it can be similar in your business. You don't want to increase your prices, even though your costs are increasing. And it feels so weird and it feels so awkward. And instead of just sending a statement saying, hey, by the way, the prices have gone through the roof. And in order for us to maintain our business, we're going to have to increase our prices. It comes almost apologetic. It comes almost as, oh, we're so sorry. We've really tried to keep our pricing in this place, but we're going to end up going bankrupt if we don't. So increase your price, woman. Let's just do it. Let me know what the new price is, okay? All the prices are increasing. Why not yours? And so if we feel like there's something wrong with us increasing our prices to reflect overall inflation, we're going to think, oh, they're going to think I'm selfish. I really shouldn't be taking anything from anyone. I feel like I'm taking something from someone when I'm increasing my prices. Instead of saying, listen, in order for us to maintain our amazing quality, and since all of the prices for all of the products have increased, we're just going to have to do that. And we hope to see you next time. Yeah, that's it. That's the announcement. Thank you. So if we want to really work on our income generating activities, we very often will be unable to create these activities if we have personal, emotional bonds, objections involved with this. And so very often when I work with entrepreneurs, I like to test the waters. I like to just see, okay, so what would happen if you like 10x your prices? And this is really just a conversation for the fun of it. Let's just have a conversation. Let's see, what does that feel like? I like to see what is the response that I'm getting from this person. Do they panic? Do they smile? Do they get immediately logical? And it's not about 10xing your prices. Of course, you're not going to put a zero on your price tomorrow when your clients are used to paying a specific particular fee. Some people are very vision oriented. They're like, oh, if I am to ever 10x my pricing, this is what it would have to look like. This is what the product would need to be. These are the steps that we would need to take in order to do that. So they're very solution oriented on it. And it's interesting to see how people respond. If the immediate reaction is, I could never, then that's a you problem. It's an emotional you problem that has nothing to do with what the marketplace does. Because no matter what you sell, there's somebody out there who's paying 10 times as much. They're just paying somebody else. And so let's figure out what are the other guys doing in order to be able to charge 10 times more. There's always someone charging 10 times more. Can we have that conversation? But if the immediate response is, I could never, it means that You don't feel worthy as a human being, not in your business, not your business. Because you as a human being you don't feel worthy. You're terrified of being rejected. You're scared of being abandoned. Abandonment issues. Don't let me get started on that. That can also look like clinging on to clients or projects that your business has outgrown because you're terrified that they will leave. And so you keep twisting and turning and going backwards in your business so that you can just accommodate those clients who's been with you for such a long time. Do you see how this has nothing to do with the business? It has everything to do with you and your emotions. Business is very emotional. Entrepreneurs are very emotional, most of them at least. And so if you have a particular type of feeling of resistance towards making a move that's going to put more money in your pockets, it means that you have an emotional problem that very likely is birthed by love or lack thereof. And then it's translated into money or lack thereof. So how do we deal with that? We always first have to name it. Like I like to say, name the turd. We gotta name the turd. We gotta talk about what we're talking about. We have to figure out what is it actually that is creating this fear. And very often the fear when it comes to love or to money comes down to a sense of worthiness, about wanting to connect, about not wanting to be left or rejected, or maybe even give like over responsibility. Yeah. If you've had that kind of parent who let you run the show because they were emotionally incapable, you ended up having to be responsible in your household at a very young age. Maybe you're taking over responsibility in the relationship with your clients. So you end up doing a lot of stuff that weren't yours to do in the first place. As no, you don't see it anywhere in the contract, but you're worried about their business because it's not been taken care of. You end up taking care of it. All of a sudden, you're extremely underpaid for the work that you do. It all comes down to expectation around what does it mean to be loved? How are we showing up in relation to our understanding of love, of being worthy of love, of receiving love, of what makes us a good person that people would love? And then we can take that manuscript and we apply it to your money. What is it here? It's also very interesting to see how we relate to love versus how we relate to things like scarcity, abundance. Do we think that there's just unlimited access? Or do we think that there's very scarce access? So there's a lot of people who are talking about when you grow up as a child and your parents are always telling you, there's not enough money, we can't afford that. And then you bring on that idea into adulthood, always looking at saving, tiny bit of money so that we continue the pattern that was taught. And I think that's very true. But I think there's also something around a relationship to the scarcity of love. Sometimes when people have scarcity of love or feel like they weren't loved, they're going to try to buy the love. They'll make money so that they can try to buy the love and fill it up with something else. It can also be that they try to eat it. We see a lot of people who are feeding, like binge eating, are doing it because it's a love replacement. It's not always, right? We're all complex human beings with our own stories, but it's very interesting to see how has your scarcity in terms of love translated into your behaviors around money. And if you were absolutely abundantly loved, how has that impacted your money situation? Again, it depends on you as a human being. Some people will receive abundance of love and think that they are the most worthy person on this planet, and they're very, very happy to serve people and set boundaries and hold boundaries and receive money and receive compensation. And then there's other people who just end up not really wanting to work and just want to spend money because there's oh, I'm worthy no matter what I do. There's also a lot of people who will lack the love, and then they feel like maybe they've been modeled that love can come in terms of gifts, right? Let's say you have parents who don't really know how to show love, and so they buy you presents, and then other than that, they're pretty vacant. And so that's how they receive love, and now that's how they give love. And so they'll spend all of their money buying gifts to other people. But do you see how there's a correlation between love and worthiness, and how there is a great correlation between money and worthiness, and then how we feel and how we act in each scenario? And so if you have that feeling, if I tell you right now, you just sit down and you imagine you're sitting in your business, and I say, how about we explode your business? And you're going to be selling way more stuff, and it's going to be way more expensive, and you're going to get many more clients. Does that induce excitement, or does it induce fear? And if it does induce fear, why are we scared? What are we scared about? What are you afraid that you can't handle? What are you afraid that you're not worthy of? What comes up? What are the feelings that come up? Because when we stretch even our imagination, even our visualization, we will feel the blockers. We will hear the excuses being formed inside of our heads so that we don't have to do that right now. We don't have to do it at all. And so there's no stretch. There's no moving forward. There's just a big fat stone on our path that we don't know how to get around. And then we just walk back home. And if we can identify, what is it really that is holding me back? What am I afraid this is going to do to me? What am I afraid this is going to say about me? What am I afraid other people will think about me, or how they will judge me, or how they will respond to me? And why is all of that important? And then we go in there and we dig around. And that's why this kind of work, it's not a one size fits all situation, because we're all different. And even the people who have the same similar childhood patterns, they will end up turning that into something very different. And so we can't just say, oh, this happens, then that happens. It's not like with strategy work, where you can just say, oh, if you do this, then that. Because most people, when they do something, they have the input of their identity into it, and it will impact how it's received and how it's implemented. And you can actually do the exact same action, but it will look and feel and be received differently, depending on the person, depending on how they feel when they do it, depending on if it feels right when they do it. Imagine if someone is selling you something and you're just like, this is just the best thing ever. And they have a story about how they went out and they put this on and they were in Paris, and then all of a sudden they got a kiss under the Eiffel Tower, and it was this incredible. And then there were fireworks, and it was this, all of it came down to this one, and they genuinely believe it. And they're like, this is the best product in the world. And then you have the same person who will do the same script, and they'll be like, yes, so I wore this one in Paris, and then I got to the Eiffel Tower, and then somebody just kissed me. And then I reported him to the police. But it would have never happened without this one. You see, the energy is just so different, whether we truly believe in something, and not just believe in this, but we believe in ourselves as we're delivering it. And until we know how to deal with that mess of emotion that is just messing everything up, and we clarify it, it's going to be incredibly hard for us to sell this beautiful thing. This is, if you want it, this is bought in Rwanda. I just don't remember where. So that was it for me on this episode number 2 of the CEO You. It's been a blessing. It's been fun. If you have any topics that you want me to talk about, please let me know. I have no idea how I'm going to handle this podcast thing right now. I'm just talking about things that feel good in the moment. And then I try to record shortly after I feel that ping. And then we have an episode. So we might have another one tomorrow or next week. I don't know. How are things going to fit in together? I don't know. Right now, we're just experimenting. We're trying things out. It's going to be fun. Do let me know if you have something that you want me to talk about, because it's more fun if I know that there's someone who has suggested something because they want to hear it. Okay. Thank you all for a beautiful session, and I will see you again soon. Bye.